I always considered our suburban neighborhood a safe haven. My wife, Melissa, and our 2 children, Diana and James, cherished our peaceful home surrounded by tall trees. But one chilly October evening, that sense of security was ripped away from us. It began innocently enough. I was working in the backyard, tending to the garden, when I noticed a small camera tucked away in the branches of a nearby oak tree. My heart skipped a beat. This wasn't a typical outdoor surveillance camera. It was hidden, camouflaged among the leaves. Alarmed, I called Melissa outside, and we began to search the yard. We discovered more cameras cleverly concealed among the foliage, pointing at our house from various angles. Panic set in as we realized that our privacy had been violated, but we couldn't fathom who would do such a thing. We immediately contacted the police, who arrived promptly. They carefully documented the cameras, ensuring no evidence was tampered with. But as the days went by, they couldn't find any clues about who was behind this unsettling invasion of our privacy. We couldn't shake the feeling of being constantly watched, and paranoia crept into our lives. We stopped going outside, especially when darkness fell, and our once beloved garden became an eerie battleground of hidden eyes. One evening, as Melissa peered out from behind the curtains, she spotted a faint glimmer of light from our neighbor's window, just across the street. We'd never had reason to doubt our neighbors before, but now suspicion gnawed at us. Carefully, we observed their house from the shadows, and there it was, a camera, its lens trained on our front door. Our hearts sank, and we realized that our neighbor, the person we had exchanged pleasantries with countless times, might be the culprit. Determined to uncover the truth, we decided to confront our neighbor, Mrs. Anderson, a friendly elderly woman who had lived there for years. With trembling hearts, we knocked on her door, and she welcomed us in, oblivious to the terror that was about to unfold. As we stepped into her living room, we couldn't ignore the monitors on the table, displaying live feeds from the cameras outside. Mrs. Anderson didn't deny her involvement, but explained that she had been watching us for months. She spoke calmly, as if it were perfectly normal to spy on her neighbors. We called the police, and Mrs. Anderson was taken into custody. It turned out she had a history of mental illness, which had gone unnoticed by those around her. Legal proceedings followed, resulting in a restraining order to protect our family. Even after Mrs. Anderson was removed from our lives, the scars remained. Our backyard, once a place of joy and relaxation, felt tainted. We never truly regained our sense of security, always aware that privacy could be stolen in the most unexpected ways. I had always been an avid gamer, especially when it came to Valorant. Late nights, intense matches, and friendly banter over voice chat had become a regular part of my life. I wasn't one to make friends easily in the real world, so my online friendships meant the world to me. And among those friends, there was one who stood out: Jason. We'd met randomly in a Valorant game about 6 months ago. At first, we only exchanged a few words about tactics, but our conversation quickly shifted towards our personal lives. Jason claimed he was a 20-year-old college student living in a city far from mine. We bonded over our shared passion for gaming, music, and a penchant for sarcasm. Our conversations soon became a daily ritual, and Jason had become someone I could confide in. As weeks turned into months, I couldn't help but feel closer to Jason than anyone else in my life. We talked about our dreams, our fears, and our plans for the future. I was a 17-year-old high school student, and he was my confidant, my mentor, guiding me through the complexities of growing up. We even discussed meeting in person someday, though that felt like a distant dream given the apparent distance between us. But then, one evening, as I was engrossed in a Valorant match, I received a text from Jason. "Hey, I have something to tell you." My fingers paused over the keyboard as I replied, "What's up?" "I'm not who you think I am," his message read. My heart sank. Anxiety swelled within me. What could he possibly mean? Had he been lying about his age, or was there something else? He continued, "I live in your street, just a few houses away. I'm not 20 and there's something you should know. I felt a lump in my throat as I realized what he was implying. Curiosity mingled with unease as I stared at his message. What did he look like? Why had he kept this a secret for so long? After a long pause, he added, "I'll understand if you don't want to talk to me anymore." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him in a nearby park the next day. The anticipation gnawed at me all night, and sleep was elusive. The next afternoon, I nervously made my way to the park. My heart pounded with each step, unsure of what to expect. And then, I saw him sitting on a bench, facing away from me. His shoulders were hunched, and he looked nothing like the confident 20-year-old college student he'd portrayed online. Jason was obese, and his unkempt appearance was a stark contrast to the charming persona I had grown to love. He turned slowly as he heard my footsteps, revealing his tear-filled eyes and a nervous smile that barely reached his lips. "I'm so sorry," he stammered. "I didn't know how to tell you." The shock of seeing him was overwhelming, and the realization that he lived just a few houses away from me sent a chill down my spine. I tried to be understanding, but as he leaned in for a kiss, my fear and revulsion got the best of me. I stumbled back, my heart pounding, unable to process what had just happened. "Sorry, I can't do this," I stammered, my voice trembling. Tears welled up in Jason's eyes as he realized the depth of my reaction. I turned and ran away, my mind in turmoil, completely terrified of the encounter. The friendship I had cherished for months had been built on a lie, and the reality of it had come crashing down in the most unsettling way possible. As I ran back to my house, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of living just a few doors down from someone who had deceived me for so long. The street I had called home suddenly felt alien and menacing, and I locked myself in my room, trembling and trying to make sense of the terrifying encounter that had shattered my trust in the world around me. It all started innocently enough. My wife, Sarah, and I had moved into a charming little suburban neighborhood with our daughter, Emily, looking for a peaceful life away from the hustle and bustle of the city. Our neighbors seemed friendly, if not a bit quirky, but nothing too out of the ordinary. Little did we know that our seemingly idyllic life was about to take a spine-chilling turn. For the first few months, everything was perfect. We'd share friendly waves and casual conversations with our neighbors, but no one stood out as particularly suspicious. Our house, however, had other plans for us. It began with strange noises. At first, we brushed them off as creaks and groans of an old house. But as the weeks went by, the sounds became more distinct, more unsettling. They'd come from above, the eerie scratching and rustling emanating from our attic. Each night, we'd lay in bed, trying to ignore the sounds, convincing ourselves it was just a pesky raccoon or maybe a squirrel. But deep down, unease gnawed at us. One evening, after Emily had gone to bed, Sarah turned to me with a look of determination in her eyes. "We can't just ignore this anymore, John. We need to find out what's going on in that attic." I nodded, knowing she was right. We decided to set up a camera in the attic, just to put our minds at ease. It felt like the responsible thing to do, to rule out any mundane explanations. The next day, I rigged up a camera and placed it in the attic, hidden from plain sight. That night, we lay in bed, anxious and excited to finally unravel the mystery. Our hearts raced as we watched the live feed on our laptop. At first, there was nothing but the stillness of the attic. We sighed in relief, thinking maybe we had overreacted. But then, it happened. We saw a shadowy figure creeping into the frame. Our hearts pounded, and our breaths caught in our throats. It moved silently, like a phantom, through the dimly lit attic. Sarah whispered, "Who is that? What are they doing up there?" As we watched, the intruder seemed to be fiddling with something, adjusting the camera slightly. Panic set in as we realized someone had been watching us. For how long, we couldn't be sure. We didn't waste a second. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 while Sarah kept an eye on the live feed. The police arrived swiftly, and we anxiously explained the situation. They arrived just in time to catch the intruder as he made his way out of the attic. It was a neighbor, someone we'd greeted in passing but never really knew. The police arrested him on the spot, and we discovered his name was Bob. As they took him away, Bob didn't say a word, just stared at us with a chilling, emotionless expression. The police questioned him, but Bob remained tight-lipped about his motives. It was a mystery we never fully unraveled. Why had he been spying on us? What had he seen? Those questions haunted us long after the incident. Our once friendly neighborhood suddenly felt like a sinister place. We couldn't help but wonder what other secrets our neighbors might be hiding. We installed a state-of-the-art security system and kept our distance from those around us.